This segment has been sponsored by Pro Bikes Caribe. Pro Bikes Caribe, get yours today. Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors of Caribbean heritage about themselves and about their literary works. Today we have with us author Ivon Valerie from St. Martin, who authored the book The Meaningful Life, Discovering God's Unique Purpose for You. Ivon, thank you very much for being available to be interviewed by Tropical Literature Creatives.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is all ours. I mean, the intent is to interview authors of Caribbean heritage. And when it is that you presented yourself to be interviewed, we were very, I personally was very excited.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.
I mean, I don't hear much about the island of St. Martin. I've never been there. What would you suggest that persons who are visiting St. Martin for the first time, what do you suggest that they try? What do you suggest that they immerse themselves into when they visit the island?
Well, St. Martin has a lot of unique things about it. But if you are landing into St. Martin for the very first time, you're going to have a wonderful, a spectacular, a tremendous, a mind-blowing experience. Because we are one of the only places in the world where as soon as you get off the plane and you enter our beautiful island, you can literally take a walk down to where we call Sunset Beach. And you can pull up there for a little while, and right above your head, probably 5 feet, if all that, you can see planes literally passing over landing. And so you have these epic trending shots where persons just spread their hands underneath planes that are flying in the air as it approaches to land in St. Martin. This is one of the most unique aspects of St. Martin. Nowhere else in the world will you find that, Kevin.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, Ivon is here as an author, but I think he can also, fill the role of a cultural ambassador slash, promoter of tourism in Martin. Because after an introduction like that, I practically, having my button on, pressing the button to purchase the ticket to St. Martin.
It is really spectacular, honestly. It's really, really spectacular. And of course, like many other Caribbean countries, we have some nice turquoise clear waters. The beaches are tremendous, remarkable white sand beaches. And the food, the cuisine, because St. Martin is actually made up of two different countries in one island. Very small, but very compact. So we have the French, which is Saint Martin, and you have the Dutch, which is Saint Martin. And so these two come together, and so we have cuisines from all over the world, especially the French cuisine. Unique, tremendous food. A lot of tourists come here for that experience. It's truly magical.
I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and I really enjoy, interacting with authors from the different islands because I get to learn stuff like this. I mean, you hear about the islands in name, but you don't know much about them. And it's when we have these conversations, I am enlightened as to how unique and at the same time how distinct, each of the islands are. And at times like these, I really am appreciative of this project. And
yes.
And of the author and you the authors as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of authors, I mean, the book that you would have written, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. So the book is called The Meaningful Life, Discovering God's Purpose for You. And that book, I began working on that book about 3 years ago. So the book took about 3 years. It is not the first book I began working on, but it is the book that I have published that if I had to be biased, I would say is the one I am most fond of so far. So far, I published 3 books. That one is the one I'm most fond of so far. The book is literally geared towards helping persons discover their purpose in life, where it would pertain to what God has called us to accomplish individually. One of the things that I struggled with as a young man, and a lot of people I know have that similar struggle, is that we sometimes go through seasons of our life where we are trying to discover our purpose, our identity, who we are, what we are called to be, what we are called to do. And so in my own journey, in my own struggles, I really did some research and I really sought the Lord And so I believe that he has given me some insights into this. And so I penned them. And so we have this wonderful book that so far the reviews are really tremendous, Kevin, if I'm being honest. Persons are contacting me and saying that they're really enjoying the material of the book and it has been a blessing to them. So that is what the book is about in a nutshell.
No, I'm really glad to hear about the reception that you have had for your book so far. The persons who would have contacted you, are they from St. Martin only or from outside of the island?
From outside of the island, I had somebody in Connecticut in the States contact me. She reached out to me and she really, we spoke on the phone for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. She really just broke down to me what the book meant to her and the changes that she was about to make in her life because of the impact of this book. We had persons from Dominica reach out to me and tell me about the impact of the book. I have somebody else from New Jersey reach out to me concerning the book. Where else again? Somebody in Baton Rouge in the States. So the book seems to be doing a lot of impact in America. Based on the reports from the publisher, we see in sales in places like Germany, we see in sales in the UK, we see in sales in Canada, in America, and also other areas. But these are the main areas that we are seeing sales for the book. It is really impactful, and I'm really just grateful based on what God is doing with this material. Seriously, yeah.
In terms of yourself, have you done like much traveling, like any different countries in the world?
Yes, because I am also a pastor, and I do travel and I do preach the gospel, and so those who have read the book would get at least one particular story from my travels. Well, not about my travels, but a lady I encounter as I traveled, and I wrote about her briefly in the book. But I traveled to Trinidad a lot. One of my favorite places to travel is Trinidad and Tobago. I've been there quite a few times preaching. I've also went back home. I'm originally from Dominica. So I went back home to Dominica and preached a few times. I've traveled to the States to preach, Guadeloupe, a few other places I can remember off the top of my head, but a little bit of traveling, yes.
Oh, the comment I was going to make is that I mean your book seems to be doing as much traveling as you're doing. So I mean the places you mentioned, Baton Rouge, Germany, and I'm seeing there's a mileage between the both of you.
Yes, yes, for sure. I thank God for that.
Oh, you mentioned that you are a full-time pastor. I mean, where did you get the time to do writing in between the work that you do?
When the time came, honestly, if I'm being real with you, Kevin, I myself cannot tell you. All I can say is thank God for a very supportive wife, because most of my writings happen in the night. When the entire family is in bed sleeping, I am in the office writing. But in the midnight oil, sometimes I get to bed like 6 in the morning when my wife is about to get up to go to work. And so I really thank God for supporting family, and especially my wife. That is where most of my writing takes place. Other than that, there are times when I would just take some days off when the writing is like really weighed down in my spirit and I need to put it on paper. I would take some days and I would just write and write and write. But most of the time, when it comes during the nighttime.
In terms of writing, did you always enjoy doing it, or is it something that you developed over time? Or in the case of this project, is it that because you know you've been doing it, it's just something that you committed yourself to do?
That's a very interesting question. I would have to say writing developed after a while, after a long time. I never liked to write, but it's something that really gave me like an escape. It began really and truly with a love for storytelling. And so we grew up very poor in Dominica. And one of the things that really kept us together as a family, because our family are very closely knitted, And one of the things that kept us together was our ability to tell each other stories and to joke and to really make things interesting. That was our entertainment, really and truly. And so my father would have a lot of colorful stories, my mother as well. All of us have that. And so that was the first thing. The second thing that really, the second step towards my writing career really would have been when I entered high school. Um, After you come from summer vacation, most English teachers would ask you to write a composition about your summer. And all my friends would write these exuberant adventures they had. And because, again, we were poor, I could not have that. And so one day I really thought of writing some really ridiculously impossible scenario. And then at the end of the composition, just write. And then I woke up, it was a dream. I was dreaming. And then that sparked something that really caused me to realize the power of writing, where it can take you beyond, like literal beyond boundaries. It can take you to different geographical locations. And so that was something I developed, and then it became something that even my classmates would really look forward towards hearing after every summer break. I mean, it was really elaborate. It was like a movie. Things was passing in my head. And then when I moved to St. Martin after college in Dominica, I tried looking for employment. I worked as a barber for about 6 months, and then I got my second job would have been as a journalist at a local newspaper, and so I did that, and it was there that I really saw the power of the written word, because I saw how people's lives would transform the right information and how it can be destroyed by the wrong information. And so I did some really interesting life stories, investigative reportings, and I saw how impactful the written word can actually be. And that is what that really gave me the final push to start thinking, not actually start writing, but start thinking about writing. And I honestly can say that the first book I began to write, I haven't published it yet. I'm still working on that first book, but that first book is more than 15 years in the making, if I say so. So it's been a process, it's been a journey. It's really actually been a journey. The journey has just begun in terms of publishing, because I have about 8 books I really want to bring out so far. But I thank God for that, and I thank God for the opportunities that He has given to me. And writing, I would really encourage any and everybody to try to just share their own experiences, good, bad, and ugly, because really and truly it has a place, it has a purpose in this earth, in this world that we live in.
You mentioned with some really interesting nuggets of information there about yourself and about your writing. Well, first off, you mentioned 8 books, but we're going to get back to the 8 books because that's a lot. I mean, you also mentioned another book which you haven't published as yet, and I believe you would have
Right.
before. But the question that I want to target right now is that you had mentioned employment. You had mentioned that you worked as a barber, you had also worked as a journalist, and now you're a pastor. With your previous forms of employment, would they have affected or contributed to your writing in any form or fashion?
Yes, sure. The being a journalist has definitely caused me to really take my writing on a much serious level. Being a pastor, this is where, because I mentioned the journalist really got me to see the importance of writing. And being a pastor is what really catapulted me or gave me the push to really get into publishing, to really writing books and publishing books. During my journey as a Christian, one of my favorite authors is a gentleman known as R.T. Kendall, and he has authored many books. And he was a pastor for 25 years at Westminster Chapel in England, and he wrote one book. And that book he wrote more than one book, but one particular I'm referring to, that book, he wrote it based on his experience of 25 years pastoring. And Kevin, when I realized that what he learned in 25 years, I could get the information I had the information in my hands, and I could get it in my mind and my spirit within 2 or 3 days while reading this one book. I realized the power of publishing a book. And so that was what really catapulted me. And then, as we go through the different journeys of being a pastor, sometimes you don't have people that you can really rely on around you. And so it's different pastors and different leaders that really and truly have gone through the process already, that their written work has actually been something that you can fall back on. And so you really see the power of the written word and the published word, and ultimately towards publishing some books.
In terms of your books, is your book self-published or is it traditionally published? And whichever form of publishing it is, what led you to decide on that particular type of publishing?
Okay, so the publishing company I use is actually my publishing company. It's called Sapiential Publishing, and we basically follow more like a self-publishing kind of pattern. And the reason why I choose it is because I really wanted to have much more control over the book. Most traditional publishers, they take more control over your material and what have you not. And then one of the benefits of traditional publishing is that you get more distribution. But with my company, I still get distribution with over, I think, 40,000 channels for distribution, and they're available worldwide. Like presently, my book is available on all the major book resellers and available on different libraries. If you have a bookstore and you want my book, there's no problem, you can get it.
Yeah, that is fantastic. That is fantastic. To make the decision, you would have had to do, I imagine, research on either one of them. In terms of self-publishing, were there any can you think of any high points in the self-publishing process?
Yes, there are some benefits for self-publishing other than traditional publishing. Like for instance, the returns on your book. You don't have to really go into a publisher to really get that, because when you go to the publisher to get that, most times you get less per book in terms of like revenues. But there are some major downfalls. There are some major negativities with self-publishing, and especially if you are not somebody that is well known, somebody that is popular in terms of marketing and distribution. And we have a issue in the world, not just the Caribbean, but the world in I should say, or major parts of the world, should I say, if I'm being honest, where we seem to be losing the fight against literacy. And so persons are not reading as much as we would like them to. And you find you might self-publish a book. It's easy to get it on KDP, and everybody might have now access to KDP, but then it just stays on KDP and your book is just there, and then you have 1-2 sales if a friend or a family member really and truly decides to support you. And we know how that go, Kevin. I mean, we would like it to be different, but everybody tell you good job, everybody tell you I will support you, but they never go and actually click buy, and it really affects you at the end of the day, because you look at everything and you say, but listen, I'm doing this in vain. But I want to encourage those that are listening now that have been or are considering self-publishing. Don't give up. Keep on doing what you're doing. Consistency is the key. Keep on doing what you're doing, and as you're waiting for your time to come, continue to improve your craft. And so you remain consistent, and you remain ever innovative. And so with that, with the grace of God, you will become much better. And so there are pros and cons to both of them, I think. And I think it is up to you to determine which one you really want to go after weighing the pros and the cons of self-publishing and traditional publishing. But I think that there are some authors, it will be much more difficult for them to actually get a publishing deal by a traditional publisher. So they might want to start as a self-publisher.
Okay, thanks for your insights on that. This isn't your first foray into writing. You identify that you have 8 books that you intend on writing and one that you didn't finish just yet.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about, the one book that you didn't finish, and maybe a little details on why you have an intention of writing 8 books? I mean, persons might say I might write one book or 2 books, but you gave a very specific number, and I'd like you to answer that question. Well, after you give some details about the book that you had started but you haven't finished as yet.
Um, so yes, the book you're referring to is actually the first book I began to write. And that book, I began writing that book recently after I became a certified coach. So I am a certified parenting teens coach. I specialize in parenting teens. And the book I began working on is because of what I experienced with working with different teenagers and parents in my community. And the book originally was entitled "The 5 Deadliest Parenting Mistakes." That was the original title for the book. And at that time, like I said, that's more than 15 years ago, since before I got married. And that book, I had a friend of mine. I grew up in school with her, who was living in Trinidad at the time. And so I sent her the copy to go through it, and she sent me back her her response on the editing and on what I need to fix and what I've not. And then I also sent it to another family friend who is well qualified in English and literature. Just send me back some stuff and whatever. And both of them said this. Both of them said, Ivon, you have some serious, good foundational stuff, but you need to work on the writing. You need to work on your writing. And some stuff you need to work on, and this you need to work on, and that you need to work on. And so I really actually took years working on the writing, working on different stuff, different this, different that. And then when I felt like the book was at a level that it was good enough to probably considering publishing, I kind of was, feeling like the time for the book had passed. The time for the book had passed. The information that I was coming with, it kind of, not that it was outdated, but I just felt like right now it wasn't relevant right now. And so what I did, I began to focus more on getting more relevant and current information, because I mean, over a decade had passed. And so I enrolled in some courses at Stanford University, at Yale. Well, not Stanford, but Yale. I was thinking of Stanford, but actually enrolled at Yale to get more current information. The research that's happening now with all the studies that they are finding and what science have been saying concerning all these things and whatever not. And so based on all that I've done and all the certification I've received from them, I believe now the book is ready to and then the second thing now that recently that I was waiting for, well, the last thing, should I say, Kevin, I was waiting for was to complete my doctorate degree. And so now that I have done that, I feel like the amount of information from a scientific background that book would have had, my title, Dr. Ivon Valerie, would have been much more appropriate on the back of the book as some kind of endorsement for that kind of book. So yes.
They also would carry some weight.
Right.
Yeah.
The other books you mentioned, I mentioned about 8 more books, and the other books I really wanted. Like for instance, I have one book entitled "The Misguided Pursuit of Happiness: Exposing the Myths." That book might be the book that I'm going to publish next year, as early as March, if everything goes good. Then we have the parenting book. That's 2. I have another book, The Metamorphosis, Embracing the Changes of Life. That is a 3rd book. I have a 4th book, which is talking about spiritual parenting, the how to identify genuine spiritual fathers and mothers, because a lot of people have been abused or being abused based on spiritual parenting. These are the first 4. So these 4 I am basically working on, hopefully by the grace of God, looking at these 4 as the next 4 books to publish. The others of them, they are in a file I have on my computer, and honestly, I care about all of them on top of my head. But I have them in files, and most of them have already been outlined. and I was just working on the content of the books. But these four are definitely the top runners for publishing next.
No, it seems like you have no shortage of content. I mean, the ideas are there, so we should just be expecting you to be pushing out books like, maybe every ever so often we're seeing books endorsed by yourself. But I'm curious too. I noticed that trend with the books that you had mentioned. A lot of them seem to be family oriented. You mentioned that you yourself are a parenting coach, and you also
Mhm,
mentioned that one of the books that you have written, the one that wasn't published, even though you've gotten to the point where it is that you finished it and everything, it was also
mhm,
based on parenting. Is that a
mhm.
particular reason why you have such an emphasis on parenting, or are you yourself a parent?
Yes, I'm a parent. I have two beautiful daughters. And apart from the things of God, the thing that is dear to me is my family. And so, my family, I am very big on family. And I also believe, I am not just believe, I have a conviction that one of the reasons why we see so much issues in our community is because there are so much issues in the family structure, in the family unit. I believe that strong families build strong communities. And so that is one of the things. And it's a good thing that you identify that, because that is so called, that is so true about me. I'm really big on family. I really love families. I big on families. I really want to see families develop, and even the whole family structure. I believe that communities, governments, churches, and different NGOs, whatever they are, different institutions, different companies in the community, need to begin to focus more on developing and strengthening the family unit in the community. Once that is strengthened, Kevin, I really believe our communities will be better.
Okay. I was going to ask, I mean, in terms of your book, what do you desire for persons to take away when it is that when they read your book?
Okay, so that is a question I've gotten a lot. Almost everybody who interview me ask me that question, and the genuine answer is this: I really want people to take away that the fact that at the end of the day, their life have a meaning, their life have a purpose, and at the end of the day, it's not just okay. I do what I want on this earth, and life is short. Each and every one of us have been given an assignment. We were here for a purpose. We are there for a reason. We are breathing oxygen not because we needed to survive, but we need it so we can accomplish what God has placed us there to accomplish. And once we first identify that, then I want us to discover in this book how we can get to accomplishing this. Because this book is literally, I wrote this book in a practical way. Practical ways how you can really discover that. It's not just saying it is there and then it's left up to you to discover it. There are practical ways and practical strategies in the book that you can implement, that you can help you discover. There's one part in the book where I spoke about, let me see if I can get it quickly. There's one part in the book I spoke about clues to your purpose. Clues to your purpose of that chapter. That is the third chapter in the book. Clues to your purpose. And that chapter really is a practical chapter where we go back even into your childhood, where even some of us that don't remember, and we have family members and friends and loved ones that remember us, remember the things that the different clues that were placed in our childhood. Because what happens, what I've come to realize, Kevin, very interestingly, is that we all have dreams and passions and stuff that we believe we have to accomplish when we are small. And then when we get old and we leave school and we get our jobs, we forget those things because of the responsibilities that society places upon us. And so this dream that we had, we no longer looking to achieve it because now we have to pay the rent. We have to pay for food, so we have to work. So we go in the 8 to 5 job, and we end up forgetting that dream, that passion that we had since we were small. And so there are clues. I believe there are clues in our childhood that are directly connected to what our purpose and our destiny is, our calling is in God. And then once we identify those clues, then we go on in the book as to how we can really work on becoming and discovering and eventually achieving our purpose.
No, I like the theme of purpose and being focused on that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this other book that I read recently called The One Thing. And it's
Okay.
easy to get distracted, and all the things that you identified as when we're young, there is clarity, and
Yeah.
And it seems that the sky is the limit on our imagination and the things that we can achieve. But as we get older, you could say life gets in the way. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I like how your book focuses on that. Um, in terms of
Thank
the
you.
book, if it is that we want to get copies of your book, where can we get copies?
Okay, so copies are available on Amazon. It's available on Walmart. It's available at Barnes and Nobles. It's available at Target. It's available like almost literally everywhere. So persons can get it, especially online. So after the book was published, before it was even released, it was available for pre-orders, right? And so I Googled the book, right, Kevin? And I was even surprised that even in Asia, the book was available. And so the book was available. I tell you, the distribution that we have is so crazy. Even in Vietnam, in some places, I saw it was available. And so right now, what I'm working on right now, what we are working on right now is getting the book translated in at before the year is over. We are looking. I am looking at having this book translated into at least two different languages, in French and also in Spanish. So that is the goal for this year, what this book is concerned, to have it translated into two different languages, in French and in Spanish, because people are asking for it in those languages. So I'm trying to do that. So people are also asking that it be a audio book as well. And so that is something that we are exploring. We are beginning to explore that option as well, too, because all people are saying audiobooks is what they're really into, because of the busyness and the time and what have you not. So we're getting a few requests for the book. The people are doing good. So we thank God for that. We honestly thank God for that.
No, and that is encouraging, Ivon. We're about to wrap up the interview in a few moments' time. For persons who would have been listening to the interview and who would have been encouraged by what it is that you had to share about the book, what would you like to share with them before we wrap up the interview?
What I would like to share with persons that heard this interview is, one, first of all, get a copy of the book. I encourage you to get a copy of the book. Even if you are doing what you know God has called you to do, get a copy of the book. Even if you are struggling to discover your purpose, get a copy of the book. And secondly, I want you to share about the book. Tell others about the book. Get a copy for a friend. Get a copy for a loved one. Because the book is not just a matter of just, okay, I get this information, but actually it's a matter, it's gold in the right person's hand, and gold in everybody's hand as far as I'm concerned. That is my message.
All right, excellent words, Ivon, excellent. Well, thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed. Ladies and gentlemen, Ivon Valerie, pastor, barber, journalist, publisher, parenting coach.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be there.
And thank you for making yourself available to be interviewed, Ivon. All the best in all your undertakings, and we look forward to hearing great things. Those 8 published books in 2024, or maybe a bit later too.
I'll meet later.
Okay. Okay, you take care.
All right, Kevin.
You've been listening to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators. If you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.